new bike and my second in a row delivered upside down and possibly even dropped. Now I understand why they delivered it upside down, because when I flipped it over, the bike started hanging out, just chilling. This, my friends, is why padding is so important on shipped bikes, and where I guess Schwinn can give themselves a pat on the back, because with all that packaging damage, everything arrived okay and everything's still here. And this particular bike, a new 29er, some may call this an upgrade, but it's actually an entirely new model, a variation of the Schwinn Taff. This, a comp version of the Taff. Now I knew this bike was on the horizon, but I didn't think it was slated for release until November, but to my surprise it showed up on the Walmart website. And I knew the specs, but that's where I got my actual first peek. And by the way, link in the description. I regularly see people comment that they can't seem to find the bikes that I review. Well, there's always a link in the description, as is the case in this video. So if you're looking for this bike, check the link. It'll take you right to it on the Walmart website, even if it's sold out, which happens really fast. And speaking of fast, after I ordered this, I received it super fast. And because I know so many people want to see bikes before they buy them, what I'm going to do here for this video, I'm going to assemble the bike and then give a quick component rundown, and we'll follow up later with geometry specs and a ride video. First order of business, undamaged or damaged box, I inspect everything, looking for any signs of anything askew. If I find anything out of place, I give that area closer inspection. After probably 100 bikes that I've unboxed and assembled, I've learned where to check for finish damage and the areas most prone to create problems like a warped front wheel. Once I'm convinced that everything is a go, it's time to assemble. And what does it take to assemble these new big box bikes? Well, it's pretty easy. Now, I'm sure everyone has their own methods, but for me, the first thing that I do is remove the zip ties that hold the front wheel in place. Then I install the seat post, which is, fancy. Well, while we're looking at this, may as well look at the seat post diameter. This is a 31.6 millimeter seat post. The only key to the installation is to make sure that it is inserted beyond the minimum insertion point marks. This is a quick release seat post clamp, so that's pretty easy. It just squeezes closed to hold everything in place. Next, I go for bars, and this is especially helpful for someone that doesn't have a bike stand. I'm going to be putting this together without one, just to show how easy it is. Before I put the bars on though, I'm going to need to properly orient the stem, which means swing it around so that it points forward. Then I remove the stem cap. There are 4 bolts that hold that in place, and I usually drop at least 3. Tools needed for this part, just 2 hex wrenches, a 4mm and a 5mm. Note there is a proper orientation to the bars. The shifter is always going to be on the right for this TAFF COMP, since that's the only shifter. And the bars go in place onto the stem, where I removed the stem cap from. And that stem cap goes on top. Now there are 4 bolts. I removed them earlier. I hand tighten these in at first, just to make sure everything's lining up properly, and then I start using a wrench. I go in a cross pattern, making sure that everything is even, the spacing is proper all the way around, before then cycling around one last time to make sure it's all tight. Wheel prep time. I want to get the wheel ready before I install it, and that includes removing the protective plastic covers. There's one over the rotor and then one on the opposite side. I'll also need to install the front wheel's quick release skewer, which is in the accessory box along with the pedals. Quick release skewers are pretty basic, but there is one important thing. There are springs and the wide ends go towards the ends, one on each side. The skewer goes into the hole in the middle of the wheel hub, and for us Americans, we like to put that quick release lever on the rotor side. The spring and the nut cap go on the opposite side. Make sure that spring has the wide end towards the nut cap. And now my no bike stand installation method. I have the bike upside down. Before I get the wheel on the fork, I need to get all the fork's packaging removed. The fork has 2 openings called dropouts, and that's where the wheels go, but note that the caliper for the brake, that's going to be pointed towards the rear. If it's not, then your fork isn't properly aligned. One extra wheel prep step that I do, but is optional, but I always recommend, is wiping down the rotors with alcohol, because they're often filthy out of the box, which can lead to brake squill, though on this bike, not bad at all. Rotor clean, the wheel dropouts in place. The quick release skewer nut needs to be tightened enough that that lever has some pressure when closed, enough to hold the wheel on firmly. front wheel installed, I can flip the bike back over and align the handlebars. Now I can use the tire that's now in place as a guide. First though, I'm going to check the top bolt on the headset to make sure that there is proper headset tension. With the front brake locked, I can rock the bike forward and back and see if there's any lateral play. If there is, I need to tighten it down more. The goal is no front to back play in the headset, but the handlebars still freely able to move left and right. And now, the stem bolts, making sure that the tire and the handlebars properly aligned for a nice straight steer. All that's left are the pedals. There is a left and a right pedal. There are stickers on both the crank arms and the pedals, though I notice on my pedals only right stickers, but no worries, there are markings on each pedal. And that left pedal, this is very important, it tightens counterclockwise, down and to the back. The right pedal, that one though, clockwise, and a 15mm wrench is used to snug both pedals down. And that's it, all that it takes to assemble one of these new TAFF COMP bikes. Now adjustments, that's an entire other video. For this TAFF and the purposes of this video though, it's reveal time. And this bike does not disappoint, it's a total looker, and if there is one bike that the pics on the Walmart website doesn't do it justice, it's this TAFF COMP. And as I said earlier, this isn't tweaks to the old TAFF, this is an entirely new bike. So let's see what components the $348 bought me. Bars, 740mm wide, 31.8mm diameter. And the graphics you're seeing, the Schwinn and the TAFF COMP, those are painted on. Grips, I guess these are the new standard lock-on grips. For Schwinns, we've also seen these on a couple of new Mongoose bikes. You know, grips is an item that most people change out pretty quick, but these aren't bad. Brakes, just like on the old TAFF, mechanical disc, and there's no auxiliary control on the left side, but there is on the right. That's the shifter, the 8-speed shifter. 70mm for the stem. I believe the exact same stem used on the old TAFF. I would compare them side by side if I didn't have the original one in the loft of the bike barn. Very soon in a follow-up video, I will compare them side by side. All the new Schwinns that are what I call marquee class big box bikes, they have this tapered head tube. A huge deal in 2020, still big, but now there's so much going on with these bikes, it's hard to single it out as one big thing anymore. And like the other bikes, it of course is adapted for this straight steer fork, which is the same fork that was on the old TAFF, the old Boundary, very similar fork, only this doesn't have chrome stanchions, they're black. And we've already seen that it accommodates the quick release front wheel. The wheels themselves, double wall alloy rims with a 26mm internal diameter, and the tires fit to those 29 by 2.25 knobbies. 29, of course, makes this a 29er, just as the graphics say. And these graphics, this color scheme looks so good. Two-tone, matte red to matte black. The front half of this bike is like a matte version of the 2021 Axum DP. And I thought the Axum looked good, but it turns out you make those colors matte and turn the back half of the bike black and it's even better. And colors aside, this alloy frame, I really like this design. It's kind of a modern stagger with some swagger. And along with all the new curves, this frame size. Remember that original TAFF, a 19-inch frame, this 18-inch. That makes the standover height on this bike more friendly to me. But if you're a taller rider, don't worry, you're not losing anything because this has such a long seat post. And remember that seat post diameter, 31.6mm, the actual seat tube for the seat post clamp, 34.9mm. The saddle, Schwinn branded, it looks okay. At the drivetrain, we see the alloy pedals that I installed earlier and the 170mm alloy crank arms and the single 30-tooth chainring. 1 by up front, 8 at the rear. We know that from the 8-speed Pro Rush shifter that works this Pro Rush derailleur. With a clutch to help keep the chain slap down, protect that chain stay. We're seeing a lot of Pro Rush now, and I know a lot of people that want to buy these outright. The derailleur shifts the 8 speeds, the actual 8 speeds themselves, a 13 to 40 tooth freewheel. But there's something special about this, because along with having a freewheel, this has a quick release. That's a combo you don't see often. Another thing that makes this TAFF COMP stand out. Quick release wheels, front and rear, 160mm rotors for both wheels. Oh, and there's one more thing. While we're at the back wheel, this rear spacing, I put my calipers on it, 141.8. Cable routing on this frame, all external. All but this one part for the internal dropper cable provisioning. Yet another affordable big box bike with a big time feature. Bring your own dropper, this time 31.6mm diameter. So you factor that in with this being a 29er and that super cool two-tone and that rear spacing makes this very much worth the $348 I spent for it, and I think worthy of the comp moniker on the name TAFF COMP. Next, I'll get this out to the trail and include full geometry specs, before I of course throw some upgrades onto this bike because it is begging to become a project bike. And I don't know if I've mentioned it already, but the current weight, 36.2 pounds out of the box. And there you have it. Now comment below with what you think, because I definitely want to hear it, because this just keeps getting better and better, does it not? And if you don't mind, give this video a thumbs up. And of course, make sure you're subscribed and you have that notification bell active, because I have a lot of videos ready. I just need a few things to align before I can flood them out. Thanks for watching KevCentral, and have a great day.